Welcome to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin, and on this episode I have Jason Roman. Jason is a New York City-based photographer, most commonly known as Stock Easy. He is a Leica ambassador and one of the most friendly, caring, and willing to share people out there. The photography industry needs more Jasons. Now let's hear a word from our podcast partner and get to the show. The Life of Phys Podcast is lit by HoboLight. HoboLight is on a mission to empower creators to elevate their creativity with lighting kits made to last and built to inspire. These lights are bold, beautiful, and powerful because HoboLight believes that your lights deserve to be seen. To learn more, follow them on Instagram at HoboLite.
All right, so my name is Jason Roman, also known as Stock Easy online. I am born and raised in New York City. I'm a native here, grew up in Brooklyn, the Bronx, a little bit of Manhattan, was born in Harlem, and I found photography pretty late in life. I think I was in my early 30s when I started shooting. I was studying acting at the time for 5 years, and I bought my first, actually I was gifted my first camera. It was a Canon EOS 70D from a friend, something like that. Maybe it was a TI or something. He just gave it to me for free. And I wanted to start shooting like little shorts, little skits and stuff like that from my video class. And then I realized that video was too difficult. It required too many people. And I didn't really like waiting on people when I felt the need to create. So one day I was sitting in my apartment and I had owned the Subway book by Bruce Davidson. And it just never occurred to me that, oh, thing takes stills. So I took the camera, read through the book, and I went outside and tried street photography for the first time when I was 31 or something like that, 30. And it just, the first day in the streets was just the most giving experience ever. It was like, it's so much adrenaline. I was camping out a wall and I ended up taking some terrible photo that was nothing like what Bruce Davidson had did in Subway. It was more like everything that we see on Instagram, it was like shadowy, bright colors and a silhouette. But then immediately after, some guys had noticed that I was standing by this wall taking pictures of people, and they came over to me and they were kind of wasted. It was in the Lower East Side, actually just a couple blocks from where I live right now. And they were on Orchard Street in Delancey, and they were drunk. And they came over to me, and dude like just had a brand new pair of Jordans. He took his sneakers off and started talking to it like a cell phone. And I'm just like snapping away, and I'll never forget the energy of that. And I was like, whoa, like, I mean, I'm from New York and we interact with people on the streets. That's not uncommon, but it was a very enlightening experience to like see how quickly you can interact with the streets around you just from having a camera. Now, I was just obsessed after that. I was looking for those experiences more every day. I needed it.
Yeah, I mean, the connection you can feel with a person just in that brief interaction. And I know from watching your YouTube videos, you don't try to do the sneak attack. You've got no problems talking to the people. You'll take a photo, you'll show them a photo, you'll have a conversation. And that's such a different approach to a lot of the people that you see. A lot of the times it's longer lenses, further away, trying to capture a sneak moment. Or as I know you're friends with Bruce Gilden, Bruce Gilden's style is one that not many people nowadays, I think, will attempt. His work is amazing. I'm a huge Bruce Gilden fan.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I think he's one of the best to ever do it. So,
I
just mean photography in general across the board. Like he's a legend, and I get so much inspiration from him. And I think a lot of people do attempt to do what Bruce Gilden does, but I don't think anybody really comes close, if I'm being completely honest. And also talking about the approach to photography where you're saying it's kind of uncommon. I read a quote from Bruce once in his book, Cherry Blossom. And he's talking about the famous photo that he has of the Yakuza lighting the cigarette when the one guy's looking at him.
Yep.
He's sitting in a cafe and he's looking out the window and he sees that gesture happen. So he grabs his camera and he runs outside and he asks them to do it again. And he had a laugh with them. And it's a famous, one of his most iconic photos. And it looks like a Bruce Gilden photo, right? But he actually spoke to those people. And so I always find it interesting about the boundaries of photography and the rules that get set up. And they're often misconceptions, and they're not created by the legends that inspire us. They're often created by, like, I don't know, content creators online who say, oh, you're not supposed to talk to people outside. None of these guys care. The only thing that they care about, like a Bruce Gilden or Ralph or anybody, any of the legends that we like, is whether the photo is good or not. That's all they care about. They don't care what focal length you use. They don't care if you talk to the subject. They don't care if you stole the photo. They don't care if you crop, if you edited your color. They don't care about any of that stuff. Is the photo good? That's it.
And that's such a weird part is how everybody has an opinion of your personal art. Everybody
Hmm.
wants to have an opinion of your color, your crop, your every aspect of it. Oh, you did this wrong. You did that wrong. You did this wrong. I actually did nothing wrong because this is how I envisioned the photo. So as
Hmm.
an artist, that's my art. You can see it however you want. I see it a certain way, and that's the end goal. That's what really matters. Back to Bruce Gilden. You were an assistant for him, were you not?
Yeah, actually, another Leica photographer, Bill Brown, had reached out to me, and he had reached out to me about it like a year ago. Not today, but like since I met Bruce, and he was like, "Hey, Bruce is looking for new assistants, and I think you're pretty credible person, and you probably help him out. I want to introduce you guys." And I was like, "No way." And he's like, "Look, nobody's gonna get rich assisting Bruce Gilden, but it's Bruce Gilden." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't assist anymore." At the time, I didn't need to. I wouldn't assist anybody. But when he said Bruce Gilden, I was like, "Yeah, of course, I would 100% do this." And a year came and went, and I kept getting, "Oh, Bruce might call you today. Bruce might call," and he just never ever called me. And then one day he was in Midtown doing a shoot for Balenciaga, maybe Crash Magazine or something like that. And out of nowhere, I get a phone call that literally says Bruce Gilden. I didn't even have his number. It's just, the caller ID. And I'm like, no fucking way. It's Bruce Gilden calling, like freaking out. And I'm outside shooting, and he's like, "Hey, it's Bruce Gilden." I'm like, "I know who this is." And he's like, "What are you doing right now?" And I was like, I felt weird telling him I was out taking photos. It felt like childish to tell Bruce Gilden. I'm like, "I'm doing my best impression of what you guys did," you know. And he's like, "Why don't you come uptown? I'm doing a shoot right now. Just come, jump in a taxi and come see me." So I hop in a taxi, I go see him, and he's got these three models in the street in front of like a giant hot dog cart, and they're all wrapped in Balenciaga tape, and he's doing a fashion shoot. And I just hung out with, he was just like, just hang out for the day and just chat with him. And me and him hit it off immediately. And his assistant had just gotten COVID. So he wanted to see if I knew the cameras that he was using, if I understood how to use flashes and all that stuff. So he kind of ran me through what it would be like assisting him and tested me on the spot. And then he was kind of like, "Okay, cool. I'll see you tomorrow." And I was like, "All right," canceled all my plans. And I assisted him the next day.
Man, what an
Yeah.
experience. Um,
Yeah.
for about 5 years, I guess I followed your journey from learning from you with the Fujifilm system to watching your transition into my personal favorite brand. And it's not even just because of the red dot, the Leica. It's because of the heritage of the company. It's about the community feel that everybody talks about. I had John
Mhm.
Hendricks on not long ago, and that's all he talked about is how much it feels like a community.
Oh man, yeah, it's unmatched. I don't think any other brand could do it if they wanted to, and they just don't have the right recipe. The way they mix people in a room, it's not really something. They're not curators of people. They're not even curators of art. Leica has that, and that's what they care about first and foremost. So, the environments that you go into, like if I were shooting Fuji, Canon, Sony, I would never meet the people that I met today. Like the doors that opened just for me from being a Leica ambassador, just from being in the Leica space, like a Bruce Gilden or a Ralph Gibson or Todd Hido, that all happens because of the camera brand, because the best and the best, even though people love to say, "Well, nobody shoots Leica professionally." It's like I'm around the best of the best, and they all shoot action.
Yeah. Is
So.
that how you got your connection to Jason Momoa as well? Was that how you got on with him?
No, actually, I had met him through Zoe Kravitz. I used to hang out with her in the Lower East Side at a hotel I worked at called the Bowery Hotel when it opened back in 2009, maybe or something like that. And she used to stay there all the time, and me and her would hang out. I'd go to plays with her that she was in and get drinks with her. And then she introduced me to this guy one day, and I was like, "Oh," he was staying at the hotel, and they're like, "Oh, come up to the room for a second." I come up to the room, and Lisa Bonet's sitting there, and I was like, "What the hell is going on?" And so it was his first time in New York. Lisa Bonet was shooting a TV show that lasted 3 months for CBS. So he just lived out of the hotel that I was working at. So me and him would go skate. I'd take him to KCDC all over New York, find drinks and stuff like that. So we just became fast friends. Fast forward, I didn't even own a camera back then. I was studying acting at the time. And so he would always give me advice to like no longer study acting. He'd be like, "You're wasting your money. You should just move to LA." And I was like, "Nah, I'm from New York. I'm not moving to LA." And 17 years later, he's one of the most famous people on this earth. And about 4 years ago, we decided to start working together professionally. He'd always liked my images online, and he always thought I was shooting film because I would hashtag Fujifilm.
Okay.
And so they realized, oh, you're not shooting film. And there was this like idea. Jay's the type of person that would kind of test you. He wants to know that you're willing to work for it, like really bust your ass for it, because that's what he did. He lived in vans and like he shot his first film, just him and his best friend, no money, like that kind of thing. They edited it themselves. And so I would get these before he was like really starting to make it. I'd get these like really cryptic invites, kind of. He'd be like, "Oh, come to Jordan. We're shooting a movie." I didn't know it was due. And he's just like, "Just come out." And I'm like, "Where am I going to stay? I don't have any money. I was a bartender." You know what I mean? And I would miss all these opportunities, but it was his way of testing me, kind of being like, "Hey, like, we're all figuring it out here, and this is where it's happening. So if you want to be a part of it, like, either jump and get a ticket and show up, and we'll figure it out." But he wasn't going to, if you needed comfort, he was not the person that was going to give it to you. And so I finally started dabbling and just being like, you know what, I'm just gonna jump on the ship, go for the ride, and see what happens. And it worked. Our recipe worked together, so we decided to keep working together. And now I'm the only person that shoots all of his magazines, his key art for all his movie projects, and any other thing, any branding. That's all goes through me. So it's cool.
That is amazing. He is one of the, I love the way he carries himself.
Mm-hmm.
The way he cares for the people that are around him, his friends. And he's someone that eventually down the line I would love to sit down and have a conversation with. Just because I think his insight and the way he talks about the crafts that he loved, whether it's music, photography, or his filmmaking, he just has so much passion for it that it's just inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a very passionate person. It's contagious too.
Yeah. And then, like I always say, my connection is somebody brought in his Aquaman Specialized. It was painted in the Aquaman airbrushed because nobody could fix his tubeless tires. And I fixed them. So that's my claim to fame. I fixed Jason Momoa's tires.
Which bike was it?
He has a custom Aquaman painted Specialized electric bike.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And I guess he was up here filming in Canada, and he had flat tires and no one could fix them because they were tubeless. So, he came in and I fixed him up, sent the bike on its way, and I was like, "Yep." I took photos and I rode Jason Momoa's bike.
Yeah, right. You gotta take it for a joyride.
Exactly. So now you're a Leica ambassador, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how long has that been going on?
I've been a Leica ambassador now for, wow, maybe the first time that I actually signed a contract with them as a barter and a partnership was when the M10R was out.
Okay.
So it's been a few years now. I was in the pandemic, actually. During the pandemic, we were still on lockdown, and they had been sending me loaners, and I was shooting a bunch of stuff for them. I was making a ton of content for Ralph Gibson. They were sharing my work a lot, and I would have these loaners, and I'd be like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm like, if you're sending me a camera and I'm promoting it, I'm like, yeah, I need to keep this thing. So if you guys want to keep me, we gotta figure this out, because I'll shoot a different brand. Like, even though I love Leica and I wanted them, I was kind of just putting their feet to the fire a little bit. And the next thing I know, I got a contract the next day for a barter. They were like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "I want an M10R and an SL2." And they're like, "You're going to need a lens for the SL2." And I was like, "I'll take a 24 to 70 or whatever. Give me something." And so my dream kit showed up in the mail, and I like couldn't believe it. I owned my first two Leicas, and that was just the craziest thing to me.
That's awesome. It's just it's so great to see, like, you put the work out there and you're like, okay, pump the brakes for a second. I'm doing all this work for you. Let's make it official. Like here's the option. Either you make it official or I'm going to go back to shooting what I know.
Yeah, I was that person in the relationship. I'm like, what are we? What's going on here?
Oh man, that's awesome. Another big part of the Life of Phys. The Life of Phys started actually as a fixed gear bicycle brand.
Mhm.
So Phys was pedal harder, you sissy. And it's just something we used to say to road cyclists as fixed gear kids, being
I
little
used to
punk
ride
kids.
Fixie as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we were actually going to do a component brand. So hubs, headsets, cranksets, wheel sets. That was our idea. Obviously being young, no money, that fizzled out quite quick, but there was something about the name Phys. And my best friend and I, who helped me create the name, I said, one day I'm going to use it for something that it's going to be out there, and I made stickers for the Life of Phys, and I just started giving them away. I'd see them stuck on things, and I'd be like, okay, well, it's out there. Now I have to do it. So now I switched it to photography heals your soul. So to me, finding photography has become my therapy. It's helped me through some pretty traumatic times in my life. So I use the camera as a way to basically forget those moments and to capture the beauty in the moments that are coming in front of the lens. Do you see a connection between mental health and the creative space? Or creativity, I guess I would say.
I think so. I think it's quite nourishing. I think the ultimate goal in life is to feel fulfilled, right? To feel like you're not wasting time, you're not missing moments, you're not passively living a meaningless existence. And so photography kind of changes that, no moment is wasted, I'm sitting here right now looking at the way the light's hitting the wall, and it's just like my existence is elevated because of that acknowledgement that there's beauty in everything. There's so much going on constantly, so it doesn't feel like I'm wasting anything. If I can just capture it, then I feel fulfilled, and that's something that I think most people don't experience every day. But as photographers, we're lucky enough to get that little fulfillment. Even if we don't share it, it's just like an understanding that, like, okay, I participated in this. This is not a passive existence. So I think it's a very special thing, and I think it definitely keeps me happy. When I'm not shooting, it doesn't feel great, when I'm not shooting anything for myself. Sometimes I'm on set and things like that, and I can feel a bit withdrawn, but I also remember how lucky I am to be pushing a shutter button as a career. So,
yeah, that's one thing. Do you have any advice for people? So what I notice in photography is people will get their first camera, and the next day they've taken 3 or 4 shots, trying to figure out settings, but the next day they're like, oh, photo shoots, paid photo shoots, instead of actually learning the product or learning the craft a bit before they'd make that leap. Do you have any advice for people when they're getting started on kind of maybe a progression stage, or what they'll do first?
It's interesting because I find that sometimes advice with photography can hinder people. Sometimes it can help depending on who the person is and what it is that they're doing. But I always say find your own path with it, right? I think it's difficult. I've come across photographers who shoot like children. They don't know the settings to their cameras, and everything that they do is such an inspired moment. And the work is beautiful because there's no hindrance to that, right? There's no overcomplicating what it is they're doing. They're trying to capture something. So it's almost this purity that comes out, right? And then I've been with photographers who are super technical, that know every button. Like I'm that guy that, like, my way of overcompensating for feeling like a poser is to like learn too much about something. Like I like my old Fuji videos. I'm like, I didn't understand that people didn't know what every button did on a camera. Like I couldn't comprehend that. I'm like, you have to hit every button, right? You got to figure out exactly what all these settings mean. And so that was my way of making peace with being a poser, like feeling like an imposter in a sense. So I think my advice would be to not listen to a lot of things that you hear online, because people will put you in a box. They will literally talk you into a corner and tell you what to do and what not to do. And typically those people that are out there making the most noise have the worst photos. If I'm being completely honest, anybody that's telling you not to crop, usually their work's pretty bad. And it's just like it's a way of holding yourself back. So don't listen to that stuff. If you want to crop your image, if you want to push the grain to 100, experiment, because that's what this is. It's an art form, right? If you went to go paint something, you're not just going to say, all right, well, I'm never going to try oil-based paints or watercolor. I'm just going to, you know what I mean? You're going to do everything. And I have this conversation with people so much online where they're like, the Pigeon Project just came out on Instagram, and I was trying to have a conversation with a couple of people that were like, essentially being haters. Even if it's a hater, I still want to have the conversation because that's what art is, right? Conversation. So I'm talking to them and they're just like, well, you're just shooting bokeh and you're just shooting telephoto. It's so easy. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, these these are paintbrushes, man. Like this is the whole point that this is why they exist. So you're so bitter about the approach that other people have. You've boxed yourself into a corner and you're saying, I'm only going to shoot 28 millimeters for the rest of my life. Okay, that's fine. Do that. But like, don't project that onto other people because a lot of us want to paint other things. Some of us want to sew. Some of us want to be woodworkers too. You know what I mean? Like I want to create things. So for me, I try everything because you'll never know what you're going to love. And you might do your best work outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I always tell a story. When I first started, I got into wildlife because where I live, there's tons of it. And I was like, that's what I'll do because I can two seconds out, I'm pointing towards my back door. You can't see it, but out my back door, there's a lagoon that has all sorts of birds, has eagles, hawks, everything. So I'm like, perfect. So I shot a photo of a short-eared owl that I was so proud of. It was like a portrait of its head. I was like, man, I got it. And I'd literally been shooting for 6 weeks. And I posted it. And a well-known photographer here in British Columbia saw the photo, sends me a DM, took the time to send me the DM and says, your photos are garbage. You should quit. And I was like,
interesting.
Wow. Okay. And at first it hit me because I'm like, I'm brand new. Like, I'm just proud
Wait,
of
and this
something
person's established?
Oh, yeah, well established. So I just,
That's
whatever.
such a weird thing to do. My
Yeah, I know. I was like, what the? And so, whatever. I took the photo down because I was embarrassed, right? I was like, oh, is it really that bad? I'm just going to not do it. And it put me in a spiral of really becoming hypercritical of my own work. And then I learned, over the next year, I learned all sorts of new editing techniques. So I was like, okay, cool. Let's re-edit this photo. Re-edited, put it up. Very first like and comment was the same guy going, this is an amazing photo. So his words affected me in a way that, I wasn't going to quit because nobody's going to make me quit anything I'm passionate about. But it really started questioning what I was putting out. And then a few years ago, I decided I'm just going to put out what I love. And that's what I started doing. Whether it's old barns or, I love decay. So I love old barns, old cars, garbage cans, I love the gritty. And I started printing them on bamboo paper. And they would come out looking like paintings because it's textured. And I was like, okay, that's what I want.
Yep.
Same thing. I want to create a painting with my image. So yeah, that's my story and how people can talk down to you and really affect you in the beginning.
Well, I'll give you one more piece of advice that I think is probably the most important thing to remember ever as a photographer or an artist, whatever you fancy yourself. And this is something that I realized after doing this for only a few years. And I think most of us forget. You are not shooting for other photographers. You're not. They don't matter. They do not matter. You should have a small group of peers that you actually respect and care about their feedback and what they have to say about your work. But the rest of the internet, if you want to be a successful photographer, you are not shooting for other photographers. Could you imagine a painter only making painters for making paintings for their peers, right? Or a director only you think about the way people consume film. And the mass majority of population has never touched a video camera. They've never edited, they've never color graded, they've never done anything. Those are the people that you're trying to reach with your images. So when photographers come to me and they say things, I just don't care because the images that I create are for people that don't own cameras. They're the bigger population. None of the photographers in my world are putting like food on my plate, right? All they want to do is actually kind of hold you back. And most people online are doing that. So I always tell people, I'm like, it's great to have the admiration from your peers, but the reality is that they're not your demographic. You should be taking images for people that don't own cameras because those are the ones that are going to feel stuff when they look at your work. And the photographers are going to be going, oh, I wonder what camera he used.
Yeah. And if it's a Leica, he's a dentist.
Yeah, basically. They hate you immediately. If you take a photo on a Leica, everybody hates you.
Yeah, there was that big debate. It went on for probably 3 weeks with people just bashing each other about Leica users bashing Sony users, and Sony users and Fuji users and Canon users bashing Leica users. Oh, it's
Mm.
just go take another photo in the cafe with your coffee. Who cares? Just let people shoot what they want to shoot.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I shoot Fuji right now. I love it. I have a
Hmm.
Hasselblad. It's amazing.
That's it.
Eventually, I'm going to add a Q3 and an SL3. That's the end goal by the end of the year.
Hmm.
You know, but in order to
Yeah.
do that, I have to connect with a demographic that, like you said, isn't photographers. They don't
Hmm.
care about my images. You know, thank you
Well,
for that advice. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah, no problem. That's, it's especially if you think about selling prints, right? It's often not photographers buying the print.
I honestly don't think I've ever sold a print to a photographer.
Well, then their feedback should mean absolutely nothing to you.
And that's what I do it for. I do it for the people that can see the image and see what it's, you
Hmm.
know, but it took me a while to get
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a long road, man. You got to make a lot of noise.
Yes, sir. And that's where the community, so I use the hashtag community over competition on
Mm.
almost everything I post. And the reason I do that is I want to build a community of people that are like-minded, that are there to help support and help us with questions we have in the creative space to avoid those pitfalls, to
Mhm.
avoid worrying about what other photographers think, and really look at what they're, as you put it, the demographic, the people that are going to put food on your plate, the people who are going to help you make a living doing what you love.
Or just appreciate the emotional context of your images rather than the aperture, like that,
Right?
because sometimes you just want to talk about the work instead,
Yeah.
so.
Um, yeah. So being in New York, it's a lot of street. I love the fact that you started shooting pigeons. It's actually right here on the screen.
Yeah.
What made you decide that you were going to do pigeons?
Uh, I think so in one of the SL3, the launch questions that they had asked me was how this project came about. And I think I didn't mention the photographer that inspired me, but it was Arnold Daniel. He had a photo. I went to a show of his, and he's a great guy. I've run into him a ton, and like he has one of the best street photography videos ever made on the internet. I think it was for Vanity Fair. You ever seen that one?
I
Where he's out
haven't.
shooting and he's in Chinatown and he's in Cognac. It's amazing. The editing is crazy. It's just the best. It's one of the most inspiring videos ever. And I was shooting back when the SL2 had came out, like it originally asked me to be a part of the launch campaign. So I shot a video for it. It never came out. I wasn't happy with it. So we shelved that. And then the Q3, I wasn't happy with it. It wasn't the right energy. I knew I always wanted that Daniel Arnold kind of, or Arnold Daniel, like he's two first names. And I had reached out to him actually, and he's chatted with me for like 40 minutes. And I was just talking about the video and how inspiring and talking about work. And then I'd run into him all the time. And so I'm at a show of his and we're chopping it up. And I'm looking at his images, and he has this one incredible image of a garbage truck in the middle of the night where it's like crushing something that's like maybe it's like a gas can, like CO2. And then he had this other photo of a pigeon, and it's in a giant pool of like, it's just a puddle, just dirty New York City puddle. And I was sitting there thinking about how New York those two images were. And I realized that I had my entire photographic journey in New York, I had been avoiding cliches. Don't take a picture of shoes hanging on a wire. Don't take a picture of these flat. Like I was really trying to like do something that was more elevated and it wasn't the same as everybody else, but it actually made me avoid a ton of the things that I thought could make my work better. And I just could not believe I didn't have a good pigeon photo. And so when I got the call from Kieran actually about the SL3, I was in a taxi and I was staring at this pigeon that was kind of limping, and it had like a nub for one leg, and it just looked like a pant leg. It looked like LL Cool J's pant leg rolled up. And I just got in this wild headspace about pigeon portraits. Would you be able to tell if I took 10 portraits of pigeons, would their personality show if I just did these massive portraits of them? And that's kind of the idea that started it. And then I was outside and I was like, wait, taking massive portraits of pigeons actually really sucks. Like they're not good photos. So I was outside every day, stressed out, trying to create a style because I'm like, I love these birds now. I know that there's something here, but there has to be some elegance to it. And everything that I was doing just looked like birds. So it was a lot of trial and error before I finally started to discover a style where I was like, okay, I'm happy with this. This feels like a painting now. So yeah.
That's incredible. I saw you post it and you're like, oh, pigeons. And I was like, okay, that's a different approach. But that's what's so amazing about this craft is you can shoot whatever.
Hmm.
And being outside of the box that people think you're in is probably one of the most fulfilling aspects that I found.
Hmm.
I lost my motivation a few months ago, and I was wandering the downtown core of the city I live in, and it took a garbage can with a big, thick, like Mr. T chain holding it to the to a gutter with a padlock, and
Yeah.
it had graffiti all over it. And I was like, something about it, the way the light hit it, I don't know. So looked at the image, and I'm like, okay, I'm inspired again. I just
Hmm.
started capturing, and now I'm back. I walk to and from work now instead of driving, so I can just capture street signs with
Yeah,
graffiti on
texture.
it,
Yeah.
just anything. And for me, I look at my camera as kind of like a security blanket. I have it with me. I know everything's going to be good. And with the podcast launch, I launched it middle of February.
Congrats.
Thanks,
That's
man.
awesome.
Um, and I'm trying to basically, I found another avenue, another passion, which is talking to people about the
Mm.
craft that I love and about mental health. And then, another aspect of it too is I grew up in a generation. I'm not sure how old you are. I'm probably a little bit older than you. Um,
38.
okay, yeah, I'm 11 years older than you.
Okay.
But I grew up in a generation where every time something was wrong or we had some kind of emotion, I was told to suck it up.
Hmm.
Men don't cry. Uh, it's okay to talk about this. It's okay to not be okay. And that's
Hmm.
what kind of started me heading towards this journey of creating a platform where, one, we can talk about our craft. We can talk about projects we're working on, the gear we use, all that. But we can also talk about the things that aren't okay, because it's okay to not be okay.
Hmm.
I made an episode not long ago with Ben Tobin out of Spokane. He's capturing Spokane. He works with the homeless communities in Spokane. We grew up together in Portland, Oregon. And um, I shared a story with him about that was the first time I ever shared it in my life. But man, when I shared that, it was like I let it go.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lightness that comes with that.
exactly. So that's where I'm trying to create a part of this podcast where people can share things that aren't the easiest for them to share and just move forward. But it's all part of this community because we all create from a certain space, right? We create from a
Hmm.
certain situation that happened. We see the world in a way because of something that happened and how it guides us to where we are.
Hmm. No, no, I think it's important to show this thing because thing photography is just kind of having an understanding of who you are, what grounds you, your foundational elements, and then that kind of integrates itself into the why of your images. So I always ask people, you're talking about photographing like gritty trash cans and stuff like that. There's something there that resonates with you, whether you explored it or not. But sometimes when you try to put words to it, you try to understand if you try to kind of mesh who you are, your personality, and everything with the work that you're creating, right? It's almost like you have a show, you have to explain it, right? It's one thing that I
Exactly.
always tell my brother. I'm like, you have to explain your photos, and I need you to explain them deeper than just telling me that, oh, I like the color, right? Because that doesn't really serve you. You have to explain it as if you were now opening a gallery. So when I think about things like pigeon projects and who I am coming from New York, there's a lot of ties into why I would explore this topic. You know what I mean? How it makes me feel. And I think that's very, there's a lot of stereotype around the type of person that I am. I'm a black man from New York City. I didn't grow up with any money. We've been evicted many times as children. My mom was a single parent. My father passed away from cancer when he was very young. And that to me adds a level of interest to my images where I hope people are thinking about how I am breaking out of those stereotypes. I think there is something very beautiful about the stereotypical black man from New York who wears gold chains and a pair of Jordans, but there is some sensitivity to my eyes. The things that I'm photographing are beautiful. Um, and I hope that people like see that and understand how important that is to come from me.
Yeah, and I think people can feel that. I've spoke with a couple photographers from New York. So I just spoke to Michael C. from Queens, so Views from the Trap. And he said the same thing. He's like, people look at me a certain way. They expect me to be a certain way because of the way I dress, the way I look.
Hmm.
And when he spoke, he was so passionate about this craft and explaining how every scenario that he recreates in his images is a scenario he lived as a child. Just like yourself. I mean, there is reasons that your images are so appealing and capture those moments in a certain way. You know, I could be at the same spot as you and take the same photo as you, but it wouldn't look the same as yours.
Mm-hmm.
I go on photo walks and there's 10 of us, 20 of us, and everybody takes the same photo and people are like, oh, we're just going to post all the same photos. I'm like, not one of these will be the same.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a different energy, a different heart for that, the way we captured that moment, the angle we shot on. I shoot aperture priority. I don't even care anymore.
Yeah, same.
It just it makes me forget about one thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of your work anyway. So for me, I see there's just so much in every image. I could look at them forever and you'd still constantly be pulling out different things. So I appreciate your work for telling a story that I can read myself without having to read what you wrote, you know?
I appreciate that. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I'm also a big fan of your brother. I think,
Oh, he's a great photographer. He's a fantastic photographer.
yeah, I think like some of my favorites are when you guys would just do street walks together.
Yeah, we try to find time to do that. I just wish we had more time. Actually, if I'm being completely honest, photography started because of my brother. He used to send me really weird photos of like a piece of pizza on a sewer cap. And like when back in the day, instead of buying iPhones, we would always buy like the HTC or this because they had better cameras, and we'd have
Yeah.
like a little photo chat room, and we would send each other like weird photos all the time. So I didn't know what I was doing. I look back at some trips that I had taken to Thailand, and they were street photos. I was taking pictures of like people in the streets, and I just never realized what it was. But
Yeah.
I was exploring subconsciousness of like what it is that I see and my need to document it and explore why I wanted to document what was fascinating. And so that started with me and him originally. And so it was funny because I tried to put a real camera in his hand multiple times and he just hated it. He actually just didn't get it. We'd go outside to shoot street. He'd be bored. He'd be on his phone. I'm like, Chuck, talk to people. Go get it. And it took a couple of years. And then one day he got this portrait, and it happens with a lot of people. And you get that photo that hits and you're obsessed. And he finally got that photo. And next thing I know, he's out there. So it was
Yeah.
cool.
And then
Yeah.
he's now at the Leica store in New York, correct?
Yeah, he's a deputy manager at the Leica store in New York City. So it's great.
Awesome.
I go by and see him all the time and chop it up with him. He's in the Leica world now, and every time he's working, somebody will go in there and be like, "Are you Stockies?"
I'm looking forward to going by and seeing that store, and
Yeah,
I'm trying to make a
beautiful
trip
store.
out that way. So I've never been, and there's something about New York that always speaks to me. So I need to make that a reality.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You gotta let me know when you're here, brother. We'll go for a walk.
100%. People always want to know what you shoot with. So what are your
Mhm.
go-tos? And then we'll
Oof.
continue.
Right now, I usually shoot my everyday is typically a M11 with a 24 millimeter on it. I love 24 millimeters, my favorite focal length. I started noticing a lot of my portraits were taken with 24. Then I have an M11 monochrome with a 50 on it. I just think it looks great together. Monochrome with a 50, really nice portraits. And then SL3 with 24 to 70 on it, or a 90 to 280. That's typically my jam right there. Those three cameras can do just about everything for me.
Of
Yeah.
course, all Leicas.
All Leicas. At this point my collection is getting kind of absurd. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, there could be worse things.
Absolutely, absolutely. But when you have six SL bodies, it's like, what the hell?
I saw
What's
that the
going
other
on
day.
here?
You're like, somebody buy one of these, please.
Yes, please. I'm like, there is some like emotional attachment to the cameras because they kind of are the building blocks of my professional career, right? It's like the starting of it. But I feel like I can keep my M cameras as something that's special, and then get rid of the Qs and the SLs. Even though I love them, I shoot most of my work on the SLs professionally, but the M camera is my everyday, and those are kind of staples. They feel like trophies.
Yeah. I think I
Yeah.
saw just recently your brother there said thank you for you hooking him up with a new camera.
I bought him a lens.
Okay.
I bought him the new 28 millimeter Summicrons with the close focusing because He's been so I hooked him up with the M11. Him and his girlfriend, me and his girlfriend put down and got him an M11. He sold all his Fuji gear, so he took the money and then like was like, "Here's an M11," and surprised him with it. I was gonna make a YouTube video of it. I never finished editing it, and so, but then he'd had that M11 for so long now, and he kind of trusted me in my advice, and I was like, "Trust me, start shooting Leica, it'll blow." I was, "Trust me, start working at the Leica store." So he's kind of like interested in being in the space. And so I felt like he's borrowing my lenses. I have to kind of help him out as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's something that I felt like he deserved because I see him like busting his ass for it. So yeah. And I also want my lenses back. So
Always, right? Every time you turn
yeah.
around, can't find the lens you're looking for.
He doesn't know how good he has it, dude. He comes to my studio and I have so much stuff. He's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna take an M7 today. I'm gonna take a 28 Superchron. Maybe I'll shoot an Elmer." I'm like, "What are you doing? You're just shopping in my fridge, dude."
He shows up with the shopping bag and just starts putting the stuff in it.
Yeah, that's exactly what he does.
You have any projects coming up on the personal front, or any
Man,
projects you're working on?
I have so much stuff right now that I cannot share. It's killing me. So I recently we're doing a show. I was living in New Zealand for 6 months with Jason Momoa. We were doing Chief of War for Apple. And so I have a bunch of BTS footage of that and photos that are going to come out by season 2. Me and him will start to put a book together. It's a really beautiful piece about the King of Hawaii. He plays a general. So it feels like apocalypto. That's what I've been shooting for for the last year. And we got reshoots coming up in June. I just shot Minecraft, the movie posters for the Minecraft movie with Jack Black and Jason Momoa. So
How
when the
cool is
Minecraft
that?
movie comes out, that's going to be unavoidable. That'll be everywhere. And it'll be probably the biggest job of my entire life till the day I die because it's Microsoft's biggest IP. And it's going to be crazy to see that everywhere. And on next week, I leave for season 2 on the road. So on May 2nd, I'm on the road for a month. I'm going to shoot 6 episodes of the TV show.
I love that show.
Yeah.
It actually introduced me to Todd Hido. So,
Oh, get out of here. Yeah.
I'd heard his name, but I'd never really put 2 and 2 together. And man, I love his work now. I've just ordered all the books, and
Nice. Yeah.
I'm a book guy, so it's way too many.
Same. He's an incredible photographer and an incredible human being. Very giving. That's how photographers should be. The best of the best are very giving.
And I'm learning that the more I'm reaching out to people and explaining what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and why I want them on, I've been getting the doors open more.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
But I've noticed like the higher up the ladder people see people, they're some of the most friendly people out there.
Mm-hmm.
You approach them and they're willing to talk. They're willing to be like, "Yeah, I'm busy until September, but hit me up in September." You were busy and busy and busy. And we were like, "We'll find a time." We found a time. And I'm so grateful that you gave me the time.
Well, nothing bad has ever come from helping people or giving advice. It just,
I agree.
I'm a good hater. I'm a professional hater. I am really good at it, but there's certain times where you realize in your life that it's only holding you back,
Yes.
There's no reason to be that way. And to be completely honest, it boxes you in. So
It does. I'm so grateful for this time. Like I said, you've been a big influence for me to keep going. What you're doing now with the behind the scenes work is somewhere that I want to head. I've always been fascinated by the images that come out from behind the scenes work. So when you guys do that book, please let me know. I'll be number one.
I'll
number
send you
one
a copy,
order.
brother.
Oh, dude, I'd love it. Do you have any words in closing?
Any words in closing? I think the thing that I've been saying the most lately is when you take a photograph and you love it, explain why. Ask yourself why. Know your why. That's what I'll leave people with. And watch out for a new YouTube video.
Oh, you're gonna start YouTube up again?
Maybe, who knows? Maybe Gadget will hear this and be like, "This motherfucker's still lying."
He's someone else that I'd love to have on eventually. Man, the fact that you took the time for me today was fantastic, and I truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate your patience, and thank you. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, man. Good luck on the next season of On the Roam.
Thank you.
And give
Appreciate it, brother.
Jason a big high five for me.
Absolutely. I'll tell him you did on his bike.
But I would love to touch base again and do another episode maybe next towards the end of the year. Just a
Yeah,
kind of a
cool.
follow-up when you can talk more about some of these things you can't talk about right now.
For sure.
And then we can just kind of, just do the follow-up so people can hear where you're at and what's happening in the next 6 months of your life.
Yeah, it's good, brother. I'm here for it.
Again, thank you so much, and we will connect again.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Life of Phys Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed our show, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content and the stories of our incredible guests. And remember to stay connected with us on all social media platforms. It's at LIFE_OF_PHYS or on the internet at www.lifeofphys.com. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day.